I've been traveling extensively for the past 13 years and full-time for 8 years now, and I've been lucky enough to visit 69 countries at this point. First as a solo female traveler, then with my boyfriend, now husband, and now with my little family. People always ask me, what's your favorite country? And it's one of the hardest questions to answer because the best places aren't always like the most famous ones or the most obvious ones. They're the places that make you feel something at a specific chapter in your life and the ones that honestly change your life. So today I'm ranking my top 10 countries. They're the places I'd tell my best friend to book tomorrow if they ask me where in the world they should go. If you're new here, hi, I'm Danielle, founder of the Wanderlover. I've been traveling full-time for the last 8 years while building an online business that lets me work from anywhere in the world and stay home with my son, Levin. These days, I split my time between creating travel content, running my business, and chasing around my son. If you love travel, making money online, or living a life by design, make sure you subscribe because I post new videos every week. So let's get started. Coming in at number 10 is the Maldives. The Maldives is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. It almost doesn't look real. The experience starts before you even arrive at your resort. Depending on which island you're staying on, you'll most likely hop on a seaplane from the capital, Malé, and I honestly think that it's one of the coolest flights I've ever taken. You're looking down at these tiny islands surrounded by the brightest turquoise water you've ever seen. It literally looks like AI. Then you arrive and it's exactly what you imagine. Crystal clear water, overwater bungalows, fish swimming underneath your room, and dolphins swimming past you. It's one of those places where you finally understand why everyone talks about it. I also loved how peaceful it felt. The resort we went to, it was the only resort on the island. So you're not trying to tick off attractions or rush around sightseeing. You wake up and design your day however you want to on your little private island. You swim, you snorkel, you eat amazing food, watch the sunset, you feed stingrays, and repeat. That said, it's definitely a splurge and not somewhere you would live long-term or be based. I don't think it's somewhere everyone needs to go every year, but if you ever get the opportunity, even just once, I think it's absolutely worth experiencing. I know that there's also great surf around the Maldives, and I haven't done that personally, but that's definitely next on the bucket list to go back and surf. Number 9 is Cuba. Cuba surprised me. It's one of those places that feels completely different from anywhere else I've been. The first thing you notice is the classic American cars everywhere. They're not there for tourists. They're just everyday cars that people have somehow kept running for decades. If you call a taxi, you're going to be in one of these really cool, colorful cars. The buildings are colorful but weathered, and the whole country feels like it's been frozen in time. What stood out to me wasn't the architecture, it's the people. Like, despite everything the country has been through, I found people to be incredibly warm, welcoming, and proud of where they're from, even towards me as an American. Music is everywhere. You'll hear live bands walking through Havana, people dancing in the streets, and there's just this energy that's hard to describe until you've experienced it yourself. Cuba isn't the easiest place to travel, but I think that's what makes it super cool, like getting the access to the country and then figuring your way out around it without typical access. Internet is limited, infrastructure isn't perfect, and things don't always go according to plan. But I think that's what makes it so memorable. It forces you to slow down, to be present, and appreciate a place for what it is instead of expecting everything to be convenient. Years and years later, I still find myself thinking about Cuba, and I just think it's the sign of a really special destination that's unforgettable. Number 8 is South Africa. If you're looking for one country that gives you a little bit of everything, this is it. I remember landing in Cape Town and immediately thinking it had to be one of the most beautiful cities I'd ever seen. You have Table Mountain in the background, beaches right there, great for surfing, although lots of sharks, incredible restaurants, and for me, it was just very exotic. Wineries just outside the city. I could have spent weeks there. And then just a few hours away, you can take a safari and you can see lions, elephants, giraffes, and rhinos in the wild. It's one of those experiences that photos just cannot capture. It's hard to explain until you're sitting there watching these giant animals completely unbothered by your existence. One thing I don't think people realize is just how diverse South Africa is. You can spend one day wine tasting in Stellenbosch and another driving the garden route and another on safari. It almost feels like multiple vacations rolled into one. If you've never been to Africa before, I think South Africa is the perfect place to start. Number 7 is Turkey. And I've said this for years, I'll keep saying it. If you love Greece, but you don't love Greece prices or the crowds, then put Turkey on your list. The coastline is absolutely stunning. I went to Alaçatı on the Mediterranean last year and it's incredible. It's basically Greece, but in Turkey. The food is incredible. I don't think I've ever been offered more tea in my life. Turkish hospitality is genuinely next level. Everyone is so hospitable. Istanbul alone is worth the trip. It's one of the only cities in the world that sits on 2 continents, so you can literally cross from Europe to Asia in one day. And between the mosques, the Grand Bazaar, food markets, there's so much history and so much diversity packed into one city. There's so much of the country I haven't seen, like Cappadocia, Pamukkale, Bodrum, but the people are beautiful, the places are beautiful, and it's definitely worth the trip. You've probably seen it all over Instagram, but I promise you, it actually looks like that in real life. Turkey was one of those countries that completely exceeded my expectations. I first backpacked there when I was in my early 20s, and I went back last year, and I still think it's one of the best value destinations out there. Number 6 is Hong Kong. And I know technically every other place I've mentioned is a country, but this deserves its spot on its own. I might be a little biased because I studied abroad here during college, but Hong Kong completely changed my perspective on Asia. A lot of people picture nothing but skyscrapers, but I want to argue that it has one of the best skylines in the world. Like, people talk about Manhattan skyline. I think Hong Kong is better, especially taking the Star Ferry across Victoria Harbor at night. But what surprised me was how much nature there is right outside the city and kind of like in the city. You can leave the middle of the city, hike for 30 minutes, and then suddenly you're surrounded by mountains overlooking the entire skyline. It's one of the coolest combinations of city and nature that I've ever experienced. And then, of course, there is the food. Some of the best dim sum I've had was in Hong Kong, and I still crave it until this day. The public transportation is amazing, incredibly easy to get around, and because I lived there for 6 months, it became one of those places that always feels a little like home whenever I go back. If you've never visited Hong Kong before, don't just spend a weekend there. Give yourself a few extra days because there is so much to the city and it's genuinely not like any other city in Asia. Number 5 is Argentina. I think Argentina has something for every type of traveler. If you're a city person, Buenos Aires has such amazing energy. People eat dinner at like 10 or 11 p.m. The cafes are always full and it has this European feel that makes you forget you're in South America. But my favorite part of Argentina has to be Mendoza. If you love wine, which I do, put it on your bucket list. One of my favorite weeks there was just going between vineyards all week. Wine tastings, long lunch overlooking the Andes, and every steak you eat is the best steak you've ever had. Like, wine and steak is just my heaven, and this is wine and steak heaven. Argentinian steak lives up to the hype. If you have more time, you can head down to Patagonia. Glaciers, mountains, and hiking there are absolutely unreal. Argentina is one of those countries where you could easily come back multiple times and have a completely different trip each time. Number 4 is Japan. Every time I go back, I experience genuine culture shock. Japan is also just so special to me because I went on my birthday with my husband, and that's when I found out I was pregnant with Levin. Everything just works. Everything like fits together so perfectly within society, but also I think like when you go to Japan in your life, somehow things just always work out and things fit. The cities are spotless. People are incredibly respectful. They have so much organization and just so much community. People work together to make society function. And there's this attention to detail detail that you notice in everything, from convenience stores to 5-star hotels. And the food, I honestly don't think I've ever had a bad meal in Japan. Like, they take so much pride in their food and serving you that they make everything just so pristine and so perfect. Even grabbing something from 7-Eleven tastes amazing. What I love is how much variety there is in the country as well. You can spend a few days exploring Tokyo, then visit temples in Kyoto, then you can go surfing in the south, or you can go ski or snowboard, some of the best powder in the world up north. It somehow manages to be one of the most modern countries I've ever visited while still holding on to so much tradition, if that makes sense. Every time I leave Japan, I immediately want to plan another trip back. If you have not visited, definitely add it to your bucket list. Number 3 is Italy, and this is another country that I'm slightly biased towards because I also studied abroad here during college, so it'll always have such a special place in my heart. And Italy is probably the least surprising country on this list because who doesn't love Italy, right? But this was really the country that made me fall in love with traveling. Before Italy, travel was just something I enjoyed, but after Italy, I started wondering if there was a way I could build my entire life around seeing more of the world because I just wanted to see so much more of this country. So it changed my life in more ways than one. Of course, the food is incredible. I still think about the fresh pasta, the pizza, the gelato, the limoncello. And then there is the history that just takes you back in time. Rome, Florence, Venice, Amalfi Coast, Cinque Terre. Every region feels different. One weekend, you can wander through like ancient ruins, and the next you're drinking wine in Tuscany, or you are partying in one of the biggest techno clubs in the world. Italy is one of those places I know I'll keep coming back to for the rest of my life, and I cannot wait to bring my baby here as well. Number 2 is Indonesia. I don't know where to start with this one because Indonesia is so much more than Bali, although Bali in itself is incredible and it's where I met my husband. Bali gets all the attention, and for a good reason. It's where I spent a lot of my time as a digital nomad, met some of my closest friends, and really fell in love with the lifestyle of working online while traveling and then surrounding myself with other online entrepreneurs. But Indonesia has over 17,000 islands. You have Bali with its rice terraces, cafes, and surf. And then you have Komodo National Park where you can dive with manta rays and see Komodo dragons. I personally love Rote Island, and I love going to Sumatra, and I love going to other islands to surf and live amongst the locals. It is such a big country. It's one of those countries where you could spend months exploring and still barely scratch the surface. I also think Indonesia is one of the best places to travel if you're on a budget because your money goes a long way. The people are incredibly kind, and it's one of those places that just has this energy that keeps pulling you back. I've been back multiple times. We try to go at least once a year. It's one of our bases. My husband and I both love it so much, and it's another place that we cannot wait to bring our son with us. And finally, number 1, this might be surprising, but it shouldn't be to those of you who have been following along this channel. Number 1 is Brazil. When I first came to Brazil, I had no idea how much it would change my life. The first time we came, it was just for Carnival. It was with my friend, and my husband, then boyfriend, had just quit his job to meet us in Argentina, and we were originally going to stay in Argentina, but all of a sudden we decided we were going to come to Brazil, and we ended up spending the pandemic here. Back then, I didn't know that I was going to have a baby here. I didn't know that I was going to eventually get citizenship. I learned Portuguese. My son was born in Rio. Now I live in Florianopolis. So yes, I'm definitely a little biased, but even if none of those things had happened, Brazil would still be one of my favorite countries in the world. It's just so much more diverse than people realize. And I really think it's like a hidden gem. Like, of course, people know Rio and Sao Paulo, but there are so many states. There are so many amazing waterfalls. There's the Amazon, there's colonial towns. Every state has its own food, culture, traditions, and even different accents. And then there are the people, of course, Brazilians, and I think Latin culture in general. They have the warmest, most welcoming people I've met anywhere in the world. And I really think that's one of the biggest reasons I fell in love with this country and why I wanted to give birth here. Brazil gives me a home when I never expected to have one, and it gave me friendships, memories, and the biggest blessing of my life. And because of that, I don't think it'll ever lose the #1 spot. So that's my top 10 after 8 years of traveling full-time and visiting 69 countries. Honestly, making this list was way harder than I expected because there were just so many places that almost made the cut. I'd love to hear yours. What's one country that completely exceeded your expectations? Let me know in the comments because I'm always looking for new places to add to my list. And if watching this video has you dreaming about traveling more, I've put together something that I wish existed when I first started. It's called the Travel Influencer Handbook, and inside I share exactly how I've been able to turn travel and content creation into a full-time career. So if you've ever thought, I wish I could travel more, but I can't afford it, or I don't know how to, that's exactly who it's made for. I'll leave the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.